In the 2007 offseason, the Minnesota Timberwolves traded away their franchise superstar Kevin Garnett. After enduring an awful 2007-8 season without him, Minnesota was granted the 3rd overall pick of the 2008 draft, which they then traded to the Memphis Grizzlies for the 5th overall pick, Kevin Love. A decorated player who had a great college career at UCLA and an even better high school career at Lake Oswego. By the time he graduated from high school, both Scout.com and Rivals.com ranked him as a top 5 prospect in the nation. In his graduating class, he was considered as the best big man in the entire country. So, as you can guess, the Wolves were expecting him to become their franchise cornerstone and carry them in a similar fashion as Kevin Garnett did. What went wrong? Why did the Kevin Love era lead to 0 playoff appearances? How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and today we're going to talk about the Kevin Love era in Minnesota and why it failed to live up to the hype. But before we start, I'd like to give a shout out to my sponsor, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that aggregates ticket prices from all over the web to help you find the best deals for games, concerts, Broadway shows, and other events. The prices marked in green are good, while the ones in red are bad. I've used the app to buy tickets before, and the process was very smooth. The app is very easy to use, and you can also see the view from your seats before you buy your tickets, which is my favorite feature. Use my promo code ANDY at checkout to get $20 off your first order. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Alright, let's get started. First, as I mentioned earlier, Love was drafted in 2008 with the 5th overall pick. He joined a Timberwolves team that was, well, it was bad, but they had some bright spots. Al Jefferson was a young, up-and-coming center who averaged 23 and 11 during Love's rookie season. He was the primary option, but unfortunately would get a major knee injury later that year, tearing his ACL. Randy Foye was also having a career year, but ended up getting traded after the season was over. It was probably a good move though, since he started to regress afterwards. I guess if you look at it this way, Al Jefferson was pretty much the only bright spot on the team, besides Love. And the problem was, Love basically had the same exact skill set as Jefferson, so he spent most of his time coming off the bench during his rookie season. He finished the season averaging a modest 11 points and 9 rebounds a game, and just like Jefferson, he was also a traffic cone on defense. As you can tell, this wasn't a good combination, offensively or defensively, which is why the Wolves finished as a bottom 6 defensive and offensive team. Fast forward to the 2009 draft, and this is where they really messed up.
With the 6th pick in the 2009 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Johnny Flynn from Syracuse University.
They were basically throwing darts at the board, trying to hit the best point guard they can, and yet it still failed. With 3 first-round picks, the Wolves drafted 3 point guards. Johnny Flynn, who had an okay rookie season but then got hip surgery and never recovered. Ricky Rubio, who didn't come to the NBA until 2 years later, and when he finally did come, it took a few years for him to adapt to the NBA game. And then there was Ty Lawson, who got traded to Denver for another pick, which got traded again to Portland for Martell Webster, who played 2 underwhelming seasons in Minnesota, and that was it. Basically, in one of the best and deepest drafts in recent NBA history, the Wolves came out with basically nothing, even with all those first-round picks. I guess Rubio was a huge part of the team, but by the time he joined, it was 2011, and Love was already starting to get impatient with all the losing, so there wasn't much time for him and Rubio to develop the chemistry. Anyway, going back to 2009, I forgot to mention they actually had another first-round pick, the 28th pick of the draft, which they got from Boston. They used that pick to draft Wayne Ellington, who would go on to be a very successful three-point shooter, and would have been a great fit if he got more minutes. A couple years later, he would be traded away too, and shortly after, he had a breakout season. The 2009-10 Wolves were a disaster, accumulating with a franchise-worst 15-67 record. Love was still coming off the bench though, behind Al Jefferson. It was this season where he made it known that he was a ferocious rebounder. And at just 21 years old, Love was already considered as the best offensive rebounder in the league, averaging nearly 4 offensive boards a game in less than 30 minutes a game. However, it was also this season where he showed his first signs of injury. He got a metacarpal fracture in his left hand by simply hitting it against someone's elbow. This was originally considered as a freak injury, but over the years, his hand injuries became a trend. Apparently, his hands were actually very fragile, as you'll see later on. The summer of 2010 would be a major turning point for the franchise. Because Love showed a ton of potential, the organization felt comfortable getting rid of Al Jefferson. In that trade, they got back Costa Koufis, who stayed for half a season, and they also got a couple first-round picks which didn't turn into anybody significant. But now, Love was a full-time starter and instantly averaged career highs across the board, and also made his first ever All-Star team. He averaged 20 points and 15 rebounds a game and won Most Improved Player of the Year. The last time anybody averaged at least 20 and 15 was in 1983 by Moses Malone. And before that, it was mainly Will and Kareem. That's incredible company to be in. They also made a decent trade to get Michael Beasley, who also had a career season, but he fell off really quickly. Unfortunately, the rest of the team was a crapshoot, and they still finished the season winning only 17 games. They were still making progress though, well, kinda. But suddenly, everything went even further downhill. In the 2011-12 lockout season, there was a huge controversy between Love and the Wolves organization. After the lockout was over, a new type of contract was created, the designated player contract. This allows one player on every team to get a 5-year contract extension as opposed to the standard 4-year extension. Love really wanted it and felt like he deserved it, but he wasn't offered it, even though it was clear that he was about to be the Wolves franchise player. It got so bad that the Wolves owner Glenn Taylor publicly said, "I don't think Kevin Love is a star, because he hasn't led us to the playoffs." To which Love responded, "I mean, it's not like I had much support out there." Then he later added on, "You walk into the locker room every year and it's completely turned over. There's new guys everywhere, and then it happens again and again. You start to wonder, is there really a plan here? Is there really any kind of a plan?" With all that being said, he continued to make staggering improvements in his game, now averaging 26 and 13 at just 23 years old, while also shooting over 5 threes a game, a part of his game that was non-existent when he came into the league. Not only was he the best scoring and rebounding power forward, but he was also one of the best three-point shooting big men, right up there with Dirk Nowitzki. Also, 2011 was when Rubio finally came over and joined the squad, but it was a bit too late at this point. The constant losses and tension surrounding the organization was too much to recover from. In the following season, Love broke his hand again while doing knuckle push-ups during preseason. The Wolves organization questioned the legitimacy of his broken hand, claiming that he might have over-exaggerated or faked the injury. To which Love responded with, "Even people in my own organization were asking if it was a legitimate injury, people calling my honesty and integrity into question, and that's what really hurt me." Turns out it was a legitimate injury because when he tried to come back early, he re-fractured his hand in January. This time, it would require surgery and he missed the rest of the season, finishing his 2012 to 2013 campaign playing only 18 games. However, the team was improving, especially with the addition of Nikola Pekovic, a tough, physical center who paired perfectly with Love and covered his defensive weaknesses. But multiple leg injuries to Pekovic would end his career pretty quickly. The 2013-14 season would be the best season during the Kevin Love era. They won 40 games, they had a legitimate secondary scorer in Kevin Martin. Pekovic anchored the paint, Rubio was healthy, and Love had the best season of his career, and up until now, that 2014 season is still his best season ever, with averages of 26 and 13 and a career-high 4.4 assists per game. They were a top 10 offensive team and a top 12 defensive team. And you know what's funny? They weren't even close to making the playoffs. That year, the 8th seed was the Dallas Mavericks, who won a whopping 49 games. Even at their best, they still couldn't compete in the West. After 6 miserable seasons with 0 playoff appearances, the Kevin Love experiment was over. And that's the story. There were some great moments as Love rapidly entered the group of elite superstar players. 3 All-Star selections and 2 All-NBA selections by the age of 25 is impressive, no doubt about that. But due to the combination of the Wolves' mismanagement, not being able to surround him with a good supporting cast, and Love's recurring hand injuries, it was an incredibly underwhelming period. It doesn't help that it's ridiculously hard to make the playoffs in the West to begin with. A great supporting cast is mandatory. In the summer of 2014, Love made it clear to Flip Saunders that he wasn't sure of the Wolves' current situation. Quotes, "More than anything, he wasn't sure this is where he wanted to be long term." That's pretty much all that was said. Love also informed the team that he was not going to re-sign with them anyway, so the Wolves needed to trade him and get something in return quickly. And so they did. They traded Love for the #1 pick of the 2014 draft, the most hyped up draft class in over a decade, and they got Andrew Wiggins, a generational prospect who was going to be their savior and bring the franchise to new heights. Anyway, that's all folks. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the Kevin Love era in Minnesota, and what are your thoughts on Kevin Love right now? I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.